Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the 8 o'clock spot, live here on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel and Twitter account. I am your host / judge / moderator, Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you for episode 36 of the 8 o'clock spot. We got not one, not two, not three, but four fantastic panelists on tap for you guys tonight. We're going to start with the co-host of the Bicoastal Baseball podcast. It is Mike Guido, our defending champion from last week, back on the 8 o'clock spot. Mike, how you doing tonight, my man?
I'm good. I'm excited for this. Listen, I think that our good buddy Tim Barnard is relishing in my misery right now with the Cavs going down 3-1 in the series. And but you know what? Listen, it's to be expected. Donovan Mitchell may have played his last game as a Cavalier, so I got to prep for that in the offseason too. So, you know, I'm doing okay otherwise, but in that sort of space, it's a little bit of a rocky road for me.
You know, the Cavs are a dumpster fire organization when two of their last few runs, where they've gotten past the first round, the best player wants out. I'm just saying. Bron in 18, Donovan Mitchell this year. Nonetheless, very excited to have Guido on. EJ Savage, BoysNTheZone, is joining us. He's actually a Celtics fan, obviously a big Dallas Cowboys fan. We're about to get into a topic that kind of involves the Cowboys.
A little bit.
EJ, tonight, how you doing?
Yeah, man, I'm feeling good, feeling great. Just excited to get on here and chop it up with my boys.
For sure. Once again, by the way, EJ actually hosted the show not that long ago when I was out and did a fantastic job. He's actually, I believe you've won the show before as well. So definitely a fantastic contestant. Barry Grant Jr., the creator of the show, the host of the All Even podcast, and the points leader of the 8 o'clock spot. Barry, how are you doing tonight? We just had thanks to you and Mike, we basically just had a topic added to the show last minute. How are you doing tonight, though?
All I'm going to say is that there's a dummy every second.
Yeah.
Man, he's just mean, man. He's just mean.
I mean, you're not technically wrong. I don't agree with you in the context that you're saying it, but I understand what you're saying. Finally, we got a brand new guest to the 8 o'clock spot. It is Danny Olmann joining the 8 o'clock spot. Danny, appreciate you coming on tonight on short notice. How you doing?
I'm good. How you doing, man? How you doing?
Doing well. Excited to have you on. Excited to see you become a part of the leaderboard, which you're going to go and look at right now, the 8 o'clock spot. The updated leaderboard, which has Barry Grant Jr. on top. But I'm sorry, that's the old leaderboard. Let's look at the newer leaderboard. Does not look like we have it, unfortunately. Okay, so there you go. No leaderboard. Let's go to our first round rules, ladies and gentlemen. A great take gives you 200 points. A good take gives you 100 points. An okay take gives you 50. And a bad take, you come home empty-handed with 0 points. Let's talk about Jared Goff. He just got paid yesterday by the Detroit Lions. It's a $212 million extension to stay in Detroit after he led the Lions to an NFC title game a year ago. Put up one of his more impressive statistical outputs, and Detroit obviously had their best year in 3 decades plus, getting to the NFC title game, which they have not done since the early 90s. And Detroit, retaining all their pieces, has a ton of momentum going into 2024. I'll start with you, Mike Guido. Was this extension warranted? Did the Lions make the right decision in extending Jared Goff?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's without question that they should have extended him. And listen, I've always had sort of mixed feelings about paying quarterbacks this amount of money. And I understand that there's cap manipulation and all that stuff. It's a very difficult conversation, but you know, reality is that he's had some of the best years of his career in Detroit. And I don't know that you can say that about very many other players in NFL history. They just, Detroit is in a lot of cases is where careers often go and die. So, you know, it's really hard to kind of turn around a culture. I think a lot of that has to do with Dan Campbell. They've drafted really well in recent years. It's a very good roster. But Jared Goff, I think, has really kind of taken the reins after being traded from Los Angeles, that kind of being given up on there, going to Detroit, starting over. We weren't even sure if Detroit was going to move forward with him when they got him from Los Angeles. So just the fact of where he is now, I think that's a really big part of this. I think Jared Goff is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. I think over the past 2 years, he's kind of established that. This is honestly, it's a move that needed to be made. They obviously love him over there. So yeah, it's absolutely the right move.
Yeah, and like you said, the impact he had, you know, coming to Detroit. I think the overall consensus on Jared Goff after the trade was, well, he's going to be a middle-of-the-road starting quarterback. He'll be fine. Like, Detroit won't be as bad as in the long run as they were the year he first got there, but nobody could have seen this coming. A lot of credit, as you mentioned, goes to Dan Campbell, goes to Ben Johnson, who comes back, stays in Detroit, would have gotten a head coaching job if he didn't want to stay in Detroit for another year. Obviously, the Lions' offense is loaded. They've resigned Amon-Ra St. Brown. They brought back Penei Sewell, so they're really making sure they retain the core guys, and Jared Goff certainly fits that mold. So, Mike Guido, going to start the night with a good take for you, my man. 100 points. Yeah, I think you're spot on a lot of things. Like, this is, it's a quarterbacks league, and finding one is really hard. And they, by virtue of the Stafford trade, I don't know if they necessarily thought Goff was going to be the long-term guy. I think they probably thought he was just going to be a placeholder for a future guy. That's why I think they may have drafted Hendon Hooker a year ago, who's probably going to get traded now. But listen, he's exceeded expectations, has played very well. So good take from Mike. EJ Savage, was this decision by the Detroit Lions to extend Jared Goff a good one?
Absolutely. I think that you look at these past 2 seasons from Jared Goff and the Detroit Lions as a whole, 2 winning seasons. They made it all the way to the NFC Championship game last year. Past 2 seasons, he's thrown for over 4,400 yards. I think 59 touchdowns and 19 interceptions over the past 2 seasons. Completely warranted. You add in retaining that offensive mind in Ben Johnson and pairing that with, like, that's the biggest thing with quarterbacks, is getting the right offensive coordinator with them. And we've seen that pairing since they have promoted Ben Johnson in 2022. His career really get revitalized. That first year in Detroit was kind of, suspect. And a lot of people do think that, they probably were just using him as a bridge quarterback. But when Ben Johnson became that offensive coordinator, it took Jared Goff to a realm that he wasn't with, in that territory yet. I mean, of course, Sean McVay with the Rams helped him a lot there, but, they felt like they should move off him. Now Detroit retains their quarterback, and they're adding weapons each and every single year. You talk about an all-pro tight end last year in Sam Laporta, Jahmyr Gibbs. They've retained Amon-Ra St. Brown, like you said. Like, why would you move off of a top 10 quarterback in Jared Goff? And I think these last 2 years, he has absolutely played up to that level. So, I'm fine with it. I think they have a clear plan under Dan Campbell, and it started with retaining Ben Johnson there. And then from that, they also get to go after Jared Goff and get him under contract. I think it's a great decision by Detroit, and I'm looking for them to make another playoff run this year.
Yeah, no question. They certainly have the pieces to do so when you consider that they play in a tough division. Green Bay, we saw what they did at the end of last season. Chicago's got momentum with Caleb Williams. We'll see what Minnesota does. But as long as they get past that division, which I think they have the best roster there, I mean, the NFC is kind of a crapshoot. We know San Francisco, if healthy, is going to be good. Philadelphia, we'll see. They had a down season a year ago. Like Detroit, I think, to me, has as good a chance as anybody, including the Niners. They had a 17-point lead on San Francisco at halftime of the NFC title game to potentially make a run. EJ, just in terms of your – go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying that they took the shots in the draft to fix that defense too.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of pieces that they've added. Obviously, drafting the corner. As well. So I think they've addressed the defense. They've done a good job in the draft the last few years. Brad Holmes has been a fantastic general manager since taking over. Just in terms of your overall breakdown, by the way, you mentioned Jared Goff as in terms of you having as a top 10 guy. Appreciate you ranking him for that reason. EJ, great take. Gets you to 200 points in the lead right here. I think that there is when you talk about the slow build in Detroit, the fact that they didn't give up on Dan Campbell, they didn't give up on Jared Goff when things didn't go well. They stuck with their guys, and all of a sudden now, like I said, I think they have as good a chance as anybody to get to the Super Bowl next year. So a great take by EJ Savage. To you, Barry Grant Jr., did the Detroit Lions make the right decision in retaining and extending Jared Goff? We got Barry. Is he here?
Yeah, I mean, they made the only decision, honestly. I think that it's a tale of perseverance and being in the right spot. And a lot of times guys get into the league and they are not in the right opportunity. They're not in the right team, the right organization to be able to maximize their abilities. Jared Goff went to a big stage. He played pretty decent, but sometimes guys don't need that big of a stage. It's about personalities, about where you're actually comfortable. He actually went to Detroit and everybody wrote it off. I'm talking about, I don't think anybody ever thought that he was going to be here and rejuvenate his career. I looked at him as a bridge quarterback, right? But he ended up being in a situation where everything is kind of placated to his abilities. It's not that big of a rah-rah town in regard. Detroit is a big city, yes, but for football, it's not really that crazy, right? So he was able to grow with the offense, like you said. They were able to build slowly, get these pieces in here, give Dan Campbell a chance to grow, have been so everything worked and is is going in the direction that, yeah, of course, he's now the leader of the team, and give him the contract because they want him. He wants Detroit. It's a perfect situation for him. And I don't think anybody today disagrees with this extension. You know, you might look at the contract and say, hey, it might be a little high, but that's how much they valued, you know, his abilities, his leadership, and his play the last few seasons in Detroit. So, you know, it's definitely warranted.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you sort of mentioned at the end the contract itself and the money. Like, the thing is, if Jared Goff is, I'm going to say a shell of himself, but a significantly lesser version of what he is now, but the Lions win a Super Bowl, because that's never really been the expectation for Detroit in the Super Bowl era. If they get to one, it's a massive success. And it's funny, man, this Stafford Goff trade might be, if you look at the two quarterback stats, you look at what the organizations are now, one of the most mutually beneficial trades in the history of sports. Like, usually there's a winner and a clear winner and loser. It looked that way initially after 1 year with Stafford winning the Super Bowl, but right now, you know, it feels like both teams are in a great spot. So good take by Barry. Give him 100 points here. Yeah, I think that this is, like you said, the fit, the ability to stick with the guy that maybe they didn't initially think, or I don't think anybody initially thought was going to be the long-term answer at quarterback, especially after trading Stafford. I think he made some really good points. So good take by Barry Grant Jr. Finally, to you, Danny Olmann, your very first take on the 8 o'clock spot. Did the Detroit Lions make the right decision in extending Jared Goff?
Absolutely. You know, he's a young kid. You know, be a future Hall of Famer. I think everything's going to work out for him for this upcoming season.
Yeah, no, I think that this is a good, again, sort of, situation for him, just given the fact, obviously, you have a lot of building pieces in Detroit. You have, obviously, again, the defense, as Mike and EJ sort of brought up, as Barry mentioned, the culture and all that. Like, that's, again, it's a good fit for Jared. It's a good sort of, the fact that they're committing to this guy long term, I think, speaks to the belief that they have in him. So, credit to Detroit for getting this thing done and not being like the Dallas Cowboys and waiting an eternity to extend their guy. They did it in 2019 and it cost them a lot of money. The Lions got this thing done right off the bat. So okay, take there, Danny. Give you the 50 points here. Just need to elaborate a little bit more on what you're saying, but I definitely agree with sort of the baseline of where you're going with Jared Goff. So 50 points there for Danny. Moving on to our second round rules. We're getting to the NBA playoffs in just a second, but first, a great take gives you 400 points, a good take gives you 200, an okay take gives you 100 points, and a bad take, you come home empty-handed with 0 points. Moving to one of the most anticipated series of the second round, defending champion Denver Nuggets and the up and coming Minnesota Timberwolves, where Minnesota takes the first 2 games, takes game 2 in dominant fashion, and a lot of folks are writing this series off. I was not one of them. I stuck with Denver, but the fact that Denver's been able to steal the 2 games in Minnesota, steal back home court from the Minnesota Timberwolves, just goes to show you, again, Jokic is the best player in the world. Michael Malone is in my view, a top 5 coach in the NBA. And the championship medal, the championship fortitude to be able to bounce back from that. I'll start with you, EJ. Is this incredible sort of 180 turnaround that the Nuggets have displayed on the road in Minnesota, is it shocking what they've done in the last 2 games?
I wouldn't say it's shocking, just because they are the champs. I mean, they have that pedigree. They know what they're doing. They are, I mean, you're talking about a 3-time MVP in Joker. I will say, they got very, very lucky that Murray didn't get suspended after game 2, because he's been the real catalyst of these past 2 games, in my opinion, him and Joker. I think that they're just controlling the flow of the game so much better these past 2 games. They're understanding, every single possession is worthy of 100% effort. And so when I think of going into a hostile environment, against the T-Wolves that have beat you twice in your own house and then having to go there, that's a daunting task. So, not shocking, but very, very worthy of praise by the champs. I think that they're working as a cohesive unit. The chemistry is there. You mentioned the coach. It speaks to that roster in their entirety. I think that it's just one of those things that you've got to understand who, like, you wouldn't count out LeBron in that series against Golden State. 3-1, they go in there like these type of athletes, like a Joker, they just know how to up the level, up a higher level when it comes to playoffs. Wasn't there the first 2 games, and now they've really showed, like, hey, this is still a series. They bring it back to their own house tonight. This is a huge game for which way this series is going to sway. So not shocking, but very worthy of praise by the Nuggets.
No question. Like you said, Jokic stepping his game, because Jokic, even going back to the last game of the Lakers series, his stat line looked great, but I didn't think he played particularly well in the closeout.
Yeah.
Did not play well in the first 2 games against Minnesota by his standards at all. And like you said, the last 2 games, particularly game 4, he was tremendous. And
Big.
Jokic went to something that we're not necessarily used to him doing, and that's being kind of a volume player. He did a lot the second MVP year when Jamal Murray was out the entire season because he had to, but just to kind of put the team on his back, rely on Aaron Gordon, who was great in game 4 as well. I think speaks to the greatness of Jokic, no question about it. EJ, good take, gets you to 400 points. Yeah, I think that there is, you talk about the heart of a champion, you talk about a team that blew through the playoffs, did not even face anything close to an elimination game in 2023. They faced a little bit of adversity, and they respond the way that they did. And it's a credit to, like you said, everybody involved in the franchise. To you, Barry Gryd Jr., is the Denver Nuggets quick 2 wins on the road turnaround against the Minnesota Timberwolves? Is it surprising at all to you?
Oh, no, it's not surprising at all. I think what everybody has to really realize about the Denver Nuggets is that they're very poised. They don't get rattled. Whether they are winning or they're losing. And what people really have to take into account as well is that series against the Lakers took a lot out of them. It took them maybe 2 games to maybe have to reset and kind of realize, okay, we're not playing the Lakers anymore, and we got somebody else in front of us. Like, a lot of people want to talk about the 4-0 or the 4-1, result of the series, but the series was not an easy series for Denver to win. They were pretty much down the entire time they were playing the Lakers. So playing from behind, although you might be poised and controlled, it takes a lot out of you. So I think it took them a little while to adjust. You saw Aaron Gordon, he got a lot more shots in game 4. And he was pretty much perfect. I think Mike Malone has done a great job making adjustments. I think he's gotten a lot better over the last 3 seasons with that. He's grown with this team as well as the players on this team, right? So, Mike Malone was a liability. Now he's an actual bonus for this team because of how he knows how to control and adjust, quarter to quarter, half to half. So, I never doubted them at all. I had people talking about that the Wolves are going to run over them, but I always had the Nuggets in 6. I just think that they're just a better team. They have the best player on planet Earth, and they have the better coach in the series. And coaches win you series. That's why I tell people all the time, players get you to the playoffs, coaches win you series.
Yeah, they do. And our prediction was the same. I also had the Nuggets in 6. And I would contend, though, with Michael Malone, you mentioned his adjustments and him getting better. I would argue he's been in a worse position twice. If you think about the bubble, people forget this. I know the bubble doesn't count or anything, but when you go to the bubble in 2020, they were down 3-1 in back-to-back series and won both against the Jazz and the Clippers. Now, people look at the Clippers and what they were not able to do, but Denver, Jokic, Jamal Murray especially, and Malone making the requisite adjustments. They've been 2-0 compared to what they've seen in the past. So, kudos to them for getting the job done. A good take here by Barry to get him to 300 points. Yeah, it's when you do have the best player in the series, the best coach, eventually it's first to 4, not first to 2, as the series continues to wear on, drag out. By the time we're done, we're like, yeah, that barring injury, of course, yeah, okay, that was the better team this series. We're not, and that's not even to take a shot at Minnesota, because I'm not saying they're dead in this series. Anthony Edwards has been awesome, but the better team, the defending champions, have certainly shown themselves. So a good take by Barry Gryd Jr. To you, Danny. Are you surprised about the Denver Nuggets bouncing back the way they have and winning these last 2 games in Minnesota to tie the series at 2 games apiece?
I mean, yeah, they've been really balling. They've been really getting down to the gritty. With Jokic playing very well, Murray playing great, Aaron Gordon playing phenomenal. With the Timberwolves, they got Edwards, who's definitely a great player during the whole series. I think they just got to really push themselves to the limits in order to really close them out. But if the Wolves don't close them out, then the Nuggets, they're going to be going to the next round. So
yeah, and this is obviously a game in Denver where, I mean, the Timberwolves were in a prime position to they don't have to win any of their road games. Beyond obviously those first 2. So having to lose those games at home, now you're back in a similar situation that you were to start the series, but now it's a best of 3, and you have, all likelihood 2 games in Denver to close that series out. So I think that you are, I think you're certainly right about that. And, it's something to certainly keep in mind when you look at the series. Good take by Danny, getting to 250. Yeah, it's, when you look at the series as it drags out, as it goes on, that's,
It could
again,
go
the
either
best.
way. It could go either way. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
like I said, the series has been very, very intense. Edwards is really like putting his all to it. I'm trying to think who else. Like, it's really just him playing, and everybody else on the Nuggets. They gonna do what they gonna do. So, it's overall a good series.
Yeah, it is a good series. It's a physical series. Listen, your point about Anthony Edwards is correct. Nobody else for Minnesota showed up at all in the last 2 games, especially Game 4 when Ant was cooking. To you, Mike Guido, are you surprised that the Denver Nuggets were able to bounce back as quickly as they were and get a W or 2 Ws in Games 3 and 4?
Yeah, I am actually, and I understand that they're the defending champs, but listen, they were punched in the teeth for the first 2 games of the series. This is a team that was perennially scoring 110, 120 points a game this entire season, and they were held to under 100 in both of those games. Listen, coming into the series, Minnesota was the top-rated defensive team in the league. It wasn't particularly close, and I had even told you. I said it in our group chat even then that after Game 2, I looked at the T-Wolves and I'm like, this is one of the best defensive teams I've ever seen, just because they have so much length and so much athleticism, and they play so unbelievably hard that like it wasn't a surprise to me that Denver was struggling to even get shots up. Like this is the kind of defense I think that they play. Now, I think a part of this, of what is going on with Denver, is that Rudy Gobert, after he came back after being out in Game 2, played absolutely horrible in Game 3, right? Game 4, he had 5 turnovers. Like, I think there's just a little bit of an adjustment now where Minnesota kind of needs to get themselves back up. I still think Minnesota wins the series. But listen, this is a defensive team in Minnesota that I think can really continue punching them in the mouth. The problem is, like I said, is that Denver is one of these teams that's been there before. And if Jamal Murray keeps playing at the level that he is right now, right? He's playing the last 2 games. He's been so efficient and hitting shots in really big situations. That's going to be difficult. But yeah, I would say I am pretty surprised based on, I think the matchup for Minnesota was really good. And after the first 2 games, Denver just looked like they were a kicked puppy after those 2 games. So yeah, I am a bit surprised. Yeah.
No, I get it. And like you said, the physicality, especially we saw in Game 2, it was just Denver looked rattled. We talked about last week the Jamal Murray situation and the suspension or no suspension, but that Michael Malone, he nearly got ejected in Game 2. Like Jokic wasn't playing well. It felt like to a degree like this was almost like a culture shock for the Denver Nuggets, and the way that they've been able to adjust. Again, speaks to their culture and to their coaching. There's no question about that. Mike, going to give you a good take, get you to 300 points here to tie you with Barry in second. Yeah, it's you talked about coming in, you talked about Rudy Gobert. That aspect of it for me is not shocking at all. Because if you look at Rudy Gobert since 2017, his defensive rating, regular season to playoffs, goes down literally every single year without fail, because he's an easy Rudy Gobert, the 4-time defensive player of the year. I'm not really sure how he got that.
Basketball. I don't know who he got pictures on to keep winning these awards. Fraud.
I do agree with you. He's one, I think, would be nuts. 4 is just I don't want to talk about that. Third round rules. Let's move on. Everything, all the point totals get doubled from the second round. A great take gives you 800 points. A good take gives you 400. An okay take gives you 200. And a bad take, you still come home empty-handed with 0 points. This got added, I swear to you guys, swear to you, the audience, got added moments before the show started. So we're going to talk about it. So JJ Redick is reportedly the front runner to get the Los Angeles Lakers coaching job. You see him right there with LeBron. They have their great podcast together. I personally enjoy it. It's done very well. But JJ Redick is reportedly the front runner to get the job. But there's been some pushback, like, hey, this is a guy who does a podcast, and we'll see if this is if he keeps doing the podcast as he's coaching and all the stuff around it. So I'll ask you, Barry, again. This was added seconds before the show started, so I'm just going to let everybody just give their take. Barry, you sort of spearheaded it, so I'll let you go first, man. Your reaction to this whole stuff, and you have 2 minutes to do so, by the way. Don't go all day.
No, I won't. It won't take that long. I've never seen such foolish takes in my life from people that actually get paid to do this. Like, you had some guy, and I'm not even going to mention his name, doesn't want some guy on a famous, popular ESPN basketball show says that a guy that has a podcast could be very cynical in the locker room of guys if he gets hired. Blah, blah, blah. Yet he has a podcast. The comedy writes itself. I don't understand what we're talking about here, Bryson. If JJ gets hired, he doesn't have time to do a podcast every week. He's a head coach of a basketball team. He has the hottest chair, maybe in sports, in regards to the high profile of that position. He has no time to be doing podcasts with Braun, to do his own old man in the three, whatever it is. He ain't got no time for that. He got time to prep, speak to the press because they're going to be all over his ass. It just doesn't make sense for people to even warrant having a conversation about him having a podcast. He wants to be a head coach because he wants to be a head coach, not because he wants to moonlight as a head coach and still do his podcast. It's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. That's it.
Yeah. No, listen, there is irony to this. And listen, if you don't want to mention his name, that's fine. He is a former player. Let's just put it that way. A former player who does have his own show. And that's, and in fairness, this guy is retired, but at the same time, I do think it's not like JJ's going to be putting out 2 interviews a week with players when they're on the road. Hey, Joker, can you do this interview for me before the game tonight? Like it's not going to be.
Hey, bro, we just lost by 25. You mind getting on this podcast with me and talking about it? Like, what are we talking about here?
That would be a bad look.
He's
that'd
dumb.
be a I don't think he's going to drop it entirely, but it's not going to be close to his.
He may save it for the offseason. That's fine.
He may. Good take there by Barry. 700 points. It is really fun, the media reaction. Like, people are really, whether you think JJ's going to be good or not, like, you think he's the worst head coach hiring in the history of the NBA just by the coverage. You think he's like Steve Nash. And I love Steve Nash, but it didn't work in Brooklyn. But good take there by Barry. Danny, your reaction to the overall media reaction as a whole to JJ Redick probably, I mean, not saying it's going to happen necessarily, but probably getting the Lakers job in short order.
How long has he been retired for? About good 5-6 years, maybe? About that. I don't know, man. Like, I can't see him as a head coach. I can only see him as a player for some odd reason. I'm thinking JJ Redick from Duke days. You know what I'm saying? So to see him on the NBA pedestal to coach a team, it's kind of. But I don't know. I don't really see him being a candidate for the Lakers head coach job.
Don't see me as a candidate for. Okay. I mean, listen, that's. We've seen guys in the past obviously leave their career, go on to be. Again, we've seen guys with zero coaching experience. Steve Kerr's a prime example. Go on to be very successful with the Warriors.
Mark
yes, that was a ready-made situation, but I'd argue the Lakers
got championship with the Warriors. You know what I mean? Like, there's many other coaches. You know what I mean? There's certain coaches that should have got opportunities. They only got one opportunity. You know what I mean? So it's oh.
Yeah,
well, I would say this to you, Danny, and we'll move on to the next contestant. If he's not the guy, then what retread coach are you going to hire? There is none. It's very skimp out there.
Especially not Bud's gone.
Yeah. Oh, gee, don't please.
Yeah, but that's. I mean, I wouldn't have liked to hire, but he was the quote unquote best retread in theory. But yeah, no, I think you make some solid points there. Okay, take here from Danny, get him to 450. I mean, listen, you do mention an okay point, like regarding, listen, he's never coached before. He hasn't been retired that long. But I would argue if there's anybody any of the candidates at least, who's in tune with what the modern NBA is, it's JJ Redick. Obviously, he played in it more recently than anybody. He knows the players. He does the podcast. He calls games. So I think from that perspective, it could be an advantage. But again, coaching, there's a little bit, different stuff that goes into that. But as far as
like Matt Barnes, maybe Steven Jackson.
All the smoke coaching staff?
Oh yeah, all the smoke coaching staff.
That would be something.
All the smoke coaching staff.
That would be.
You gotta smoke it. You have to smoke at least 3 blunts to be on the staff.
Half of LA smoke weed, so
that's true. That's true. I think Matt Barnes actually wouldn't be bad, to be honest. Matt Barnes,
he's very intelligent.
Yeah. I think you never know. I think
he's real thoroughbred. Like, you're not going to intimidate him. Like, he's going to tell you what it
sure
is.
For sure.
I'll take Steven Jackson as my assistant coach.
Listen, that would be funny if that were to occur. To you, Mike Guido, your reaction to this overall reaction to JJ Redick maybe getting the Lakers job. I know you and Barry for a brief second there before we started the show, we're really going at it about it.
I'm gonna mute so I can curse in private.
Yeah. Well, he should, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna love this. But here's the thing: I agree in some sense that I don't think that him having a podcast now is a big deal, given the landscape that we're in the media. I just think that I'm not sure that JJ Redick has said anything too out there to really have people concerned in that respect. So I don't really think that matters now. However, here's the thing, man, is that LeBron and JJ Redick's podcast is 6 episodes deep as of today. It is a brand spanking new show. And if there's anything that anybody knows about LeBron, it's that he doesn't give up on a project like within the first second. Like, I just don't understand why it's possible. Why it shouldn't be considered possible that JJ Redick could have a podcast while he's coaching. You have every player in the NBA at this very moment seems like has a podcast, right? Of some sense or capacity, right? And we always say, right? And especially about the this guy's the first to do this, the first to do that, right? Why couldn't JJ Redick? Because the argument is like, what NBA head coach do you see has a podcast right now? Well, most of them are old, first of all. And second of all, why couldn't JJ Redick be the first? Like, that's kind of where I'm going with this, is that, like, I don't understand why that, like, what it would be a bad look, or you don't see any other coaches doing it. That's not a good enough reason for me to say, yeah, they're not going to. Now, again, it's a different conversation of should they? No. I think player podcasts during the season are dumb. I think whatever you want to call it, I think they're dumb. I agree. I think it's a distraction, but that doesn't mean that I don't think it could happen. So, yes, I think JJ Redick is, I think, honestly, likely to keep the podcast if he's hired as the head coach of the Lakers.
I do think he'll keep it. I do agree with you there. I don't think he'll just ditch the old man, the 3 and all that. But yeah, I mean, listen, again, you generally speaking, you could argue, yes, the player podcasts have been a distraction. I'd argue Draymond Green had the player podcast in 22 and the Warriors won the finals and played his best game in the last game of the series when his podcast was at all-time high. So again, to me, it's a case-by-case basis. Like, I don't know, I hate to take shots here, but if Trae Young has a podcast, it's like, okay, like Trae, you've had one nice postseason run and that is literally it. But if you're an accomplished player like a Draymond, what's that?
His podcast was horrible.
It was, yeah, it wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. The Josh Hart, Jalen Brunson one, I actually kind of like that one. But listen, there's Paul George. Like, there's some good ones out there. But yeah, I think he made some good points. I'll give you a good take as well, Mike. Tie you and Barry, just so we can. I think both y'all have good takes, but we can tie it. This is a wash again, essentially for you guys, because I'm not gonna lie, it's feel like kind of a waste of my time, the audience's time. But I like to hear what EJ has to say. Your reaction, EJ, about the JJ. Just telling you about the JJ Redick reaction to him potentially getting the Lakers job pretty soon.
Yeah, so first I'll hit on that. The coaching, him possibly being the coach, is an interesting one. I think that we've seen some players, Chauncey Billups, Steve Kerr was brought up. We've seen players, ex-players come into coaching jobs, do well. Obviously, Steve Kerr is probably the most accomplished ex-player to coach. In recent memory. But, it's not a question of if I think that he's smart enough or has, new innovative ideas. I think that he will. What I worry about is if he's too connected with this generation of players, and how does that kind of cloud his coaching style and judgment on that front. Now, with the podcast, if NFL teams can write in stuff about their quarterbacks having to put in so much bookwork, time in the playbook and stuff like that, they can easily write this into his contract. No podcast. Or the Lakers can go a route of, hey, let's make this podcast a kind of hard knock series with the Lakers, inside look for certain fans to get an inside look at what we're doing as an organization, as a team, bring in a new player. There's only, 15 players on a roster each week. Talk about what they're seeing, talk about what they need to get better at. I think that could be kind of cool and, an innovative idea and a new idea amongst a overwhelming amount of podcasts that has been talked about from NBA players in these past 3 years that have just popped up. This would be a new idea, and it can also sell, a some type of membership for Lakers fans that get the inside look at that. And I don't know, it could be kind of cool. Now, does that interfere with his coaching? Probably, but it's one of those things. How well can you juggle it when you have 15 guys under you versus your own self having to worry about as a player? So that's my 2 cents in the whole thing.
I'm not gonna lie to you, Jay. You're kind of on fire today. That's another great take, man. I'm giving you another great take. Get you to 1,200 points. This. Listen, I love the outside the box idea with making it like you mentioned, like the Hard Knocks thing, and doing like a one-on-one. Like I always say, God rest his soul, Kobe Bryant. I always loved the detail series he did. I think Peyton Manning might have done it on the football side. Like I love these sort of inside, break the game down type of thing. And if you do that with, again, obviously JJ Redick and LeBron, that's like peak basketball IQ at its finest. But if you were to do one with an Anthony Davis, do one with an Austin Reeves, like I think it'd be interesting. I think people would watch it, especially given it is the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. That could be fun. So EJ is finishing this segment off very well. Your second great take of the night, my man. You are on fire. To our 4th round rules, which, by the way, final round where all 4 contestants are involved. The top 2 point getters will get to the final round. A great take gives you 1,600 points. A good take gives you 800. An okay take gives you 400. And a bad take, still 0 points right there. Oklahoma City beat the Dallas Mavericks last night in Game 4 to tie the series at 2 games apiece in a game that Dallas led virtually from start to, about 4 or 5 minutes left in the game, despite Luka Doncic not playing well, despite Kyrie Irving not playing well. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, over 30 points once again in the postseason. He's been fantastic. He's been the best player in the series thus far. So start with you, Danny, on this segment. More credit to OKC for kind of stealing that game on the road to tie the series up, or more blame on Dallas for letting the game slip through their fingers?
I think Dallas let that game slip to them because OKC's a real young team. They're very hungry. They're very determined to really go out there and really play. SGA, he's I guess the new, I don't want to say Kevin Durant of that team per se, if you want to put it like that. He's that guy that's really out the limelight. You know what I mean? He's really doing his thing out there. With Kyrie, Kyrie's doing his thing as well. Luka, he's off and on. You know what I mean? So it's a tough little series too. It's another tough series.
Yeah, it has been. And like you said, this is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's completely taken over again. He has Luka, I still think, is the better player overall, but Shai Gilgeous has clearly been the best player through the first 4 games of the series. And like you said, that has been late game execution had plagued Dallas at the end, or not the end of game 1, but they kind of there was a close game go in the 4th quarter, and Oklahoma City just completely took over and was able to win that game at home. And this one, though, Dallas has an opportunity to take a commanding 3-1 lead, but Oklahoma City snatches a victory from seemingly the jaws of defeat, and now they have home court advantage back, so it's a completely different series entirely. So okay, take here from Danny to get him to 850 points. Yeah, I think he makes some interesting points regarding, Dallas not playing well, Oklahoma City kind of stealing it. So an okay take for Danny. To you, Mike Guido, are you surprised? More credit to Oklahoma City for stealing the game, or more blame on the Dallas Mavericks for letting the game slip away?
I always say this, Bryson, when it comes to basketball in general, and especially at the professional level, the worst thing that you can do as a team is throw away possessions, right? That was my number one criticism of Kobe Bryant, was that there were nights, as great as Kobe was, right, and as great as Michael was, and all of these high volume players, Allen Iverson, James Harden, the kind of these same high volume players, is that they, with as many points as they score and as great as they are, they're going to have those nights where they are super inefficient and they are taking bad shot after bad shot and just wasting possessions. That's what Luka Doncic has done a lot of this playoff series, right? A 6 for 20 last night. 3 out of his last 5 playoff games, he shot below 35% from the field. He's just not shooting the ball well. Teams have answers for him. That's the problem, is that he's not an overly athletic guy. He's obviously able to get it, create his own shot and everything like that. He's one of the best in the league to do it. but it has sort of like a James Harden feel to it, where he's going to shoot 5 for 20 from the field and have 18, 19 points from the free throw line. And that's kind of what you're getting, right? I think Dallas, for the most part, has been fighting harder than they have to, just because they're trying to make up for the possessions that they're wasting on the offensive end. They're not as good of a defensive team to be able to make up for that. Oklahoma City's going to win the series in my mind, but this is also a team, like I said, I think it has to do a little bit of both, but I do think that Dallas throwing it away is the bigger reason. Oklahoma City just has one of these teams that's young and hungry, and they're too stupid to know that they really shouldn't be there. So I'm one of these guys that I think that, like, wasting possessions is the worst thing you can do in basketball. That's why I think it's Dallas.
Yeah, I love the point you make about Oklahoma City, like the naivete of this being really their first playoff run, not having faced elimination before. Again, this was kind of an elimination type game because they go down 3-1. I struggle to see how they win the series, even with 2 potential home games with Dallas and I'm sorry with Luka and Kyrie not playing well in Game 4. And yeah like you said, it's the games I've done. It's the stat the last couple of shows on Carving Up. When Luka Doncic's ball usage rate is 30% or lower, the Dallas Mavericks are 9-0 this season. And their offense and defensive rating is like top 5. If you just took those 9 games, inserted into the NBA season, they'd be like top 5 in both. Because like you said, it's more of an efficient style of basketball offensively. It helps you on the defensive end of the floor because you're not having to, Luka Doncic has become as much of a liability on that side. So good take by Mike. I think you make a lot of great points that, this was a game, like, credit to Oklahoma City, but they were going to go on their run eventually. It was up to Dallas to kind of try and snuff that out with more efficient offense. They weren't able to do that. And that's why they lost the game. That's why the series is tied at 2 games apiece. And Oklahoma City is finally seeming to get the credit that I feel like they've deserved all season long for. Listen, I know they're young, but there's a reason they were the 1 seed in the toughest conference by far in the NBA. To you, EJ Savage, was this game more about the Dallas Mavericks letting it slip away, or the Oklahoma City Thunder kind of coming in and stealing it?
Yeah, I think it was about OKC stealing it. I think that, Kyrie and Luka, they combined for 27 points over 83 minutes on the court. 27 points, like, come on. Like, yes, they were ahead in the third quarter. That fourth quarter was obviously Thunder finally got the offense going in that fourth quarter. But it starts by eliminating your best players on the opposition. And when it is that time for them to make a shot down the stretch, they're cold. They're not ready to come out there and get the buckets needed. To Mike's point, like, the Mavs kind of struggle with some of the same problems that my Celtics have, with Jason Tatum being too ball dependent late in games and just throwing up wasted possession shots, just going 1v1 ISOs instead of in the flow of the offense. I see the same stuff with Luka sometimes, and it's at a detriment to that team. But I will say Oklahoma played good defense down that stretch against their 2 best players, really the whole game, and they finally started making shots down in the fourth quarter. I think they outscored their best quarter prior by 10, 12 points in that fourth quarter. So it's more about OKC for me. They're a team that has drafted so well these past few years, set themselves up to be in this position, and I'm kind of happy to see a small market team do this and come up big when they're playing away and they had to have this game, or like you mentioned, they go down 3-1. So it's big. I'm happy for the Thunder, and I think it's more about them late in that game.
Yeah, and like you said, you bring up Oklahoma City's front office. Sam Presti's one of the best executives in the NBA. Like, what he's done to acquire these picks through the Paul George trade, through the Russell Westbrook trade, and through other trades, being able to put this roster together, build around Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has led this, again, like you said, small market team. You really do have to do it primarily through the NBA draft. And listen, this team, you look at their average age, I think it's almost equivalent to that of the North Carolina men's basketball team like this year. So it's again, age-wise, it's a college basketball team, very talented college basketball team out here doing impressive things. Good take here for EJ. Yeah, and listen, you're going to have your runs late in the game, and this is going to be a situation where, or could have been a situation where Oklahoma City, they're on the road, they're down 2-1, and maybe it's like this plays into what Mike was talking about, the sort of too stupid to realize what situation that you're in, where they were overwhelmed by the moment. They didn't look too big for them. It almost looked, I don't want to say too big for Dallas, but Oklahoma City certainly played a lot more poise, with a lot more poise down the stretch of that game, especially as it pertains to free throw shooting. You'd think the home team with the home crowd on their side would shoot better. That was not the case. So a good take there by EJ. Finally with you, Barry Grant Jr., was this more about the Mavs giving it away or the Thunder coming in and stealing it?
Of course, it's the Mavs giving it away, because all they do is give away possessions and give away games because of their lack of basketball IQ in clutch situations. See, the thing is with Luka, and I got dragged for this months ago. I'm talking about this thing had like almost 400,000 views on Instagram, all because I said that Luka's kind of a sideshow. That style of basketball is not conducive to winning championships. And you're seeing it. Just because he hit at a 38% clip of threes in the regular season, he still thinks that he can be able to take ill-advised step back threes with a team that, as hungry as OKC is, you can't give away possessions like everybody has been saying so far. And he continues to do it. It's like you think that this guy has a high basketball IQ, and he does. But when you see him play on the court offensively, you kind of question that at times, because let's just think about his numbers. Like, he went 2 for 9 from 3. He went 1 for 4 the other game, 5 for 8. Okay, that was a good game. But every other game, 1 for 8, 1 for 10. At some point, you have to understand that the shot is not falling from deep. So change your game to be able to help your team out a little bit more. This is the problem that they're going to have going forward. And I think that Mike is right. OKC will probably win this series because of the poor play that they have from their 2 stars. And it's not even more Kyrie, it's more Luka, because they go as Luka goes. So this is a big problem for them going forward. And it's a problem that I've saw all season long and seasons prior because of how Luka plays.
It is. And I think that there is again, in life, it's easy to go back to bad habits, even when you're trying to break out of them. And I think the Mavericks over the second half of the season, and part of the reason they played so well, they added PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, which were huge traded acquisitions. But again, under Jason Kidd, they really seemed to kind of change from a Luka-centric style basketball to a more team-oriented, which is why Kyrie was playing better. But again, not to take blame from Kyrie, scored 9 points, but does Kyrie play better if they play more of a team-oriented ball movement style basketball? I think he does. I think Luka plays better, by the way, if that's the case. And so again, that you live by your best player, die by your best player, and that's the situation with the Mavericks. I'm not gonna lie, the overall breakdown, I'm gonna give Barry Grant Jr. a great take, which unfortunately Mike Guido will eliminate you with Danny from the final round. But a great take by Barry, again, kind of hitting on the things that he has, to his credit, been saying for quite some time. But Danny, Mike, good performances by both of you tonight. The final round will consist of Barry and of EJ Savage in this final 8 o'clock spot round, and it's do or die. It is sink or swim. It is, again, we'll show you the rules right here, okay? Winner gets 10,000 points, loser gets nothing. It's that simple. It's a great equalizer in this 8 o'clock spot tournament. Let's talk about LeBron James at the Cavs game. It's a shame Mike Guido didn't make the final round, because I really would have wanted to hear his take on this. But LeBron James was at Game 4 between the Cavs and Celtics last night. Got a standing ovation for the crowd. He was there with Rich Paul, with his wife Savannah, and it was a great ovation, for LeBron. And obviously, he's a hero in Cleveland. I mean, he's up there with Jim Brown in the history of that city in terms of great athletes. But I'll ask you, EJ, something with this appearance for LeBron or nothing? Is there any significance to it at all? Can you help me out here?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything up with this appearance. I think that factoring into the earlier question with JJ Redick possibly being the Lakers coach, like, he and LeBron have a great relationship. Factor in, I guess you could say maybe with somebody drafting Bronny, but there's no clear, inkling of a doubt that specifically is Cleveland. I think they're overwhelmingly happy in LA. I think that LeBron realistically wants to finish out his career there. But yeah, we'll revisit this question maybe if Cleveland does, go ahead and draft Bronny later on in the draft, especially with him doing well in the combine so far. But realistically, I think it's just him getting honored in a playoff game, Game 4, one that you needed. Hype up the crowd with LeBron there, like, come on now. And obviously Donovan Mitchell didn't get to play that game, but I think that it did liven up the crowd a little bit. They got going. It was a good environment for that team, and they made a really good run. Of course, Boston kind of closes it out. Jason Tatum was great that game, but man, I see no significance with LeBron being there other than just hype up the Cleveland crowd because he is a hometown legend there.
Sure. And I did hear today, I think I heard Chris Broussard on TV, who knows Rich Paul. He said that Rich Paul apparently told him that they were there because it's, over Mother's Day weekend, I guess to visit LeBron's mother, Gloria, or I don't know if she still lives in Cleveland, whatever the situation is. So maybe that's all it was. And there happened to be a basketball game in game 3, which I would argue, okay, then why wasn't he or game 4 rather, why wasn't he there in game 3? I don't know. We'll see how it plays itself out. Like you said, EJ. Finally with you, Barry, any significance to LeBron being game 4 at all? Am I reading into it too much? What's going on here?
No, you're not reading into it too much because anything that LeBron does is calculated. Everything that he does is under a microscope, and he knows that. I don't necessarily believe that he wants to leave LA. We've had conversations about this, on camera and off camera. But I do believe that him popping up on a playoff game in Cleveland, and him getting this big ovation, him drinking his wine and then leaving before the game is over, it's a message. It's a message saying that I'm a free agent if I want to be. I can be able to go and parade around to any particular basketball team in any game I want to in these playoffs, just to make you see that I am here, that I can be here and not in LA whenever you want me to. You understand what I'm saying? So it's more of like, he wants to stay in LA, but give him a reason to stay in LA. You better make sure you make some roster changes. Make sure that although he said he doesn't care about the coach, he cares about the coach. He cares about somebody that is his intellectual equal so they can be able to have a good team. He loves Jeannie, but there needs to be some type of pressure that he puts on them. And I think he does that every year. So they're constantly on their toes. This is what great players do. You make sure that you keep the organization that you play for aware that things can change if they get complacent. So I think it means something, but it's more a message more than him going to Cleveland.
It could be, and like you said, it's an opportunity to say, "Hey, don't take me for granted. Don't just assume I'm automatically staying in Los Angeles." And like you said, he is LeBron James. He averaged 25, 8, and 7 in year 21. He's still a great player.
Better numbers than Anthony Edwards. I will say that.
What's that?
Better numbers than Anthony Edwards that everybody's talking about. But
I actually agree with you there. Yeah, overall, he's still incredibly better than Anthony Edwards. Yeah, I think like you said, using the leverage to his advantage is something that he's going to do. I would argue, before I announce the winner, is there a chance maybe that he's there? I'm sure to take in the game, but maybe recruit Donovan Mitchell. I don't know.
Listen. I'm going to tell you right now. I will. I have sources.
Yes, you do.
Bryson will say Barry's sources are pretty accurate.
Historically, yeah, they have been.
I've heard some rumor that they are kicking the tires on Donovan Mitchell because I don't believe that the Cavs are going to wait if he doesn't sign that extension. And Donovan Mitchell would be, if he doesn't sign that extension, he's looking to go elsewhere quickly.
Sure.
So look for that particular market to heat up quickly if the Cavs get out and he tends to not sign that extension. The Lakers will be lurking. Trust me.
And that would be a great move for the Lakers if they got Donovan Mitchell. I'll just say that. I mean, talk about a playmaker, adding that with AD and LeBron, a guy that can make big shots in big moments. You're talking about a Kyrie-esque kind of a player and also
a future play too, EJ. That's post LeBron. That you can be able to have
Anthony Davis. Yeah, sure.
Right.
No, and that's, I'll say this, it would be a much better move than Trae Young. I don't think Trae Young would move the needle an inch if he goes to because he's such a defensive liability, because he's so inefficient. The Donovan Mitchell, that would be a great move for the Lakers. I'm, as a Warriors fan, I'm crossing my fingers that doesn't happen because, man, that would make y'all scary.
And I hope it makes Mike miserable. Yes.
It would make Mike miserable. Now, that aspect might actually be, that might actually be kind of enjoyable. But in the long term, I don't want to see Donovan Mitchell in the purple and gold. Both y'all get fire takes once again, but there could be only one winner on the 8 o'clock spot. As we dial up the victory music, the winner for the 8 o'clock spot, episode 36, is Barry Grant Jr. Once again, the points leader, adds to his point total. Barry with a Lakers take, LeBron take. Your reaction, Barry?
Yes. Shouts to EJ. EJ's my guy, man. Always brings the smoke and the heat when he's on the show. Listen, I need you to be on the show more because it's so fun having you there. But yeah, listen, I told that when the snap comes on, it's just more about, am I over the 100,000 point mark yet? I should be.
You've officially crossed it, I think. Yeah.
It's just milestones all over the place, man. I'm like LeBron James. Just continue to set milestones as I walk. I'm a walking monument. But look, shouts to Guido. Shouts to everybody on the show. Shouts to people that watch the show, listen to the show. I always have to end with a PSA, right? This might not be a very good PSA, but I'm going to say it anyway. For those that don't watch women's basketball, for those that don't even give it a chance, I think you're doing yourself a great disservice because these women are playing their hearts out and they're trying to grow their brand. They're getting sneaker deals. They're getting other sponsorships. They're growing their game incrementally. And I have to condone it. I've poked fun at certain things about the WNBA for years. But they're really, really trying. They're really doing their thing, man. And I really appreciate what they're doing. So I think as basketball fans, as fathers out there that have daughters, I think it's really important that we give them a chance and support them and see how far this game can grow because it takes people to start to pay attention for a wave to happen, right? And they have some great players. And listen, let's see how far these women can go. Let's see how far they can push it. Can they give me that feeling back in 1997 again with the Houston Comets and Lisa Leslie and all these people that were playing for the Sparks and Tina Thompson and you had Cheryl Swoops and Cynthia Kuba. Give me that feeling back. You know what I mean? That's what I'm waiting for. Sure. You know what I mean? I've been waiting for that for 20 years. That's why I've been hating. I need that back. So please give them a chance and support the season and see how good it goes.
Yeah, well, listen, the season starts today, so that's just an appropriate statement. And like you said, I mean, I would argue, and I think it's a fact. I love baseball. The WNBA is making far more of an effort to grow their game, and I think has a much better. Kathy Engelbert's done a really good job as a new commissioner of the WNBA the last few years. Certainly a lot better than our favorite commissioner Rob Manfred. Who? There you go. Who? Mike, real quick, you said you wanted a piece real quick on LeBron and the Cavs thing because you are a Cavs fan and LeBron guy. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So first, let me just say a couple of things here. I do want to say that I do feel like I got robbed out of the final round. You heard all of the references to my take that got these two into the final round. I'm just gonna say I love both of them to death. I'm just saying that there's shenanigans going on right here. That's the first thing. The second thing is I do want to briefly touch on the WNBA thing because first of all, I do also think that if I'm not mistaken, right, the Indiana Fever debut for Caitlin Clark is only being broadcasted on WNBA League Pass. Am I right?
No. It's on ESPN2. It's on Disney Plus. It's on a lot of the. I think almost every single one of their games is nationally televised.
I was going to say that because if that were the case, then the WNBA would really then find out who doesn't care about the WNBA. If you're going to make people pay for it, that's a little silly. But now that's moot. Whatever. Okay. LeBron being in Cleveland is a massive deal. And I don't think that people are taking much stock into that. I really don't think they're taking enough stock into it. I really don't. First of all, this is about right where LeBron's track record leads, right? Cleveland for 7 years the first time. Whatever. Miami for 4. Cleveland for 4, LA for 6. If we are ruling out another jump, I don't know that we should be doing that. Plus, you got to keep this in mind too. Those two were talking about, hey, why doesn't LeBron recruit Donovan Mitchell to the Lakers? Why doesn't Donovan Mitchell recruit LeBron to the Cavs? Like that, if you were to ask me today, who has a better roster between the Cavs and the Lakers? I think the Cavs blow them away. It's not even close.
I agree with that.
It's not even close. It's not even close. If you're going to tell me that you would take
a caper and he's a
no. You stop. You stop. If you're going to tell me right now that you would honestly take Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura and those guys over Darius Garland, Max Strus, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, be my guest.
Anthony Davis.
Okay, Anthony Davis, one player.
One really good play. By the way, not to cut you off,
By the way, we can argue isn't as good as Donovan Mitchell, who would be his teammate. So, if we're going to really be honest about this, why not? Right? We all know the connection that LeBron has there. That doesn't even need to be explained. But you think he's there just to poke his head in? Barry's right. Every move he makes is calculated. You're really going to rule that out? I don't know why everybody thinks that LeBron is so unbelievably tied to Los Angeles just because it's Los Angeles. It's crazy. He's just as popular in Cleveland as he is in LA. Can we stop with this?
We can debate this after the show's over because I feel like we're keeping EJ too long because EJ's got a show pretty soon. So sorry,
Yes.
we've kept you so long, EJ. But shout out to you, Boys of the Zone. Great performance by EJ. By Mike, congratulations, Barry Grant Jr., All Even podcast host and continued champion, and the snap or the lightning rod or whatever he is. The 8 o'clock spot. All three of you, as well as Danny, put up a good performance tonight. We will see you guys very soon for episode 30 for episode 37 of the 8 o'clock spot coming up soon on the Gryd Network YouTube channel and Twitter account. Until then, we'll see you then. God bless y'all. Peace out.
Peace.